Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Cosmic Compass on this Monday, November 24th, 2025. Wow, who would have thought we would be this late in the year already? But here we are. So, today we're going to talk a little astro speak and we're going to pull some cards. But first, we're going to breathe because breathing is good. Breathing is very good, right? So finding something, and for some of you, this might not be possible because of what you're doing, but if you can and want to close your eyes, you can just bring your awareness down into your body. Just feel how you're feeling today. Feel where you are in the room, or if you're outside, what do you feel in the air? What is around you? And again, you don't need to close your eyes, but just bringing that awareness inward, allowing yourself a moment to just be. We're going to breathe in, expand the belly as you breathe, and then exhaling when you're ready. And this is really just helping set the energy for our conversation. Breathing in, expanding the belly, and exhaling. And if you feel comfortable, you can join me in honoring the earth by breathing in and feeling the beautiful grounded energy and support that the earth has for us. Breathing that in up through the soles of the feet, expanding the belly, exhaling. If possible, dropping those shoulders, relaxing the jaw. And on the next inhale, really thanking all of those who came before on this spot of earth where you are in this moment. If it's comfortable, you can thank your ancestors as well for getting you here. And breathing in and exhaling when you're ready. And as we take our next breath, honoring all those loved ones that we've known in this lifetime who have departed, honoring their memories, honoring their lives. Just breathing in gratitude. And when you're ready, exhaling. And when you're ready, you can bring yourself back into the space, ready to pull some cards. Thank you for joining me in the breathing. I think it's really good to breathe, honestly. You know, just saying. Okay, we're going to start with a sacred geometry deck today. We're going to pull an anchor card from here. I feel like there's a lot of messages that want to be shared. I'm going to let this one, whatever I pull here, let me pull it for our week. I'm going to let this stand on its own for now, although I imagine you can probably figure this out without really too much explanation. It's called the Rainbow DNA. And these are cards by Francine Hart, who last I knew lived on the Big Island in Hawaii, I believe. Phenomenal cards. And to really, again, what we do here is just take the messages that come for us. So and I'll put more information in the follow-up email, but for right now, how does this speak to you? What does this remind you of? Or if there's more action that's wanted, what does it remind you to do? How do you feel when you see this card? What surfaces? What's the story here? So I am super curious. And it turns out there's more than one card that came for an anchor card. So I'm going to show you the next card as well. And so we're going to have 5 cards today. That's good. I like the odd numbers. So this one is another one for us to anchor some energy today. Many of you are very familiar with this from uh, many of the meditations, but also some of the other tools that we've learned and used over the years. This is something that is actually scientifically measured for those of you that are curious. But for now, let's deepen in. And what do you feel? What do you see? What do you notice? There might be some hidden messages in there. You can see the geometry that's here. And again, what is your story? And what is here for you to remember? I always like to consider that. Okay, more on that one later. And now I will pull three cards from Chris Ann's deck. The first card for our week. I guess I guess twos are coming out. This will be the first card. Is this card here, number 20. The name for this card is Judgment. Just a quick thought. It's not necessarily what we think. That word is an interesting one that has stayed over the years. But again, Chris Ann's art is really well done to really get you into the story of what this card is about. And so, what do you notice? What do you feel? What do you see? If this were you, what would be the story? And that's really the best way to really look at, particularly this deck. Okay. The second card came right away, one of our favorite cards, a chariot. And again, lots of details. Sometimes I notice one thing more than another, and this time I'm noticing some new things, and I've probably looked at this card hundreds of times. So, where is your eye drawn? What is the story that you hear or feel? What do you notice? I'm noticing something very significant today, but I won't say anything because it's my experience, and I want you to have your experience. Okay, and then our last card is this one. All right, the Wheel of Fortune. And yeah, this is an interesting one with the art. For those of you that know the tarot, we know that the Wheel of Fortune has many meanings, but it is definitely a path and a journey. So again, just take your time. What's the first thing that arises for you? What do you notice this time seeing this card? I don't think we've had this one very often, but I know why we're getting it, so I'll share that in a minute. You can see the sacred geometry in the background, the flower of life. Okay, so we're going to start. I'm actually going to talk about this a little bit. So by now, I've usually shared a little bit more. It's already November 24th. By now, I've usually shared a little bit more about next year, numerology and astrology. I'm not there yet, haven't quite gotten there yet. But what is true is that next year is a 10 year. And I know for many people, they will reduce the double number to a single digit, and that's fine. People want to see it as a 1 year. I'm totally good with that. I see it as a 10 year. I follow um, some other numerology rules, guidelines. We should really call them guidelines. And so for me, it's a 10 year, not just me personally, but for our collective. So this card actually reminds me to share a little bit with you about that today. What does it mean when we enter a 10 year? Well, first of all, let's start with this year. This year's a 9 year. And so collectively, um, How are we doing with our wisdom? How are we doing with bringing things to completion that need to come to completion? I think ultimately with the 9 year, I already know my answer, but have we taken the time we need to deepen into quiet reflection, our own wisdom? How are we sharing that? And so we still have 5 weeks. So you still have 5 weeks of the nine energy before we get to the 10 energy. And the 10 energy is it's a lot more lively. It's definitely a more external energy. You can tell. I mean, just as she's standing here again, the art is very, very good here. It is a time where we do plant new seeds. It's not necessarily the time of when we harvest the growth. And that's a really important part of understanding the map of numerology. Um, the Wheel of Fortune moves, obviously, the 10 moves. So some 10 years we are going to have some harvest and we will be looking back at 10 years ago and saying, what was I doing 10 years ago? So I can see that in my own life if I look back to 2016. I started some very significant things in 2016. And so I want to look at 10 years later, what has come from that? And is there more? Are there new seeds that need to be planted? Or do I continue to work with what is? And what has grown from that time. So I'll have other days set aside where I talk more about next year, but since this came up, I wanted to share. So, okay. So our astrology. Um, One of the things you've heard me talk about prior to today, a couple of times, is the Mercury retrograde. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time today talking about how Mercury retrograde in Scorpio can support us, how we can support ourselves during this Mercury retrograde. Right now, Mercury is moving into position to be conjunct Venus. Today and tomorrow are really good days to to move into the heart, which is really interesting that this card showed up. Um, Not a big surprise, right? Um, Move into the heart and really ask, what does my heart need? What do I need? It's a good thing to ask this week. And then if you are getting together with other people, find out what their needs are. Um, for those of you that live in the United States, we have Thanksgiving. Some of you celebrate, some of you don't. Um, for those of you that live in other places, which actually quite a lot of you do, um, this week is a week where you can be dropping into your heart for all kinds of other reasons, whether you're getting together with friends or not, or family or not. So, allowing yourself to utilize the tools that you have to listen. Listen carefully to your heart, to your soul, to your spirit. Um, and, this morning I was reminded yet again of one of my favorite quotes. And we've talked about it, I think, here and maybe in some other places as well. And I wanted to remind you of it because I love it. Um, I think it's from Rumi. I think that the, I think a lot of people are, what should I say, have attributed it to Socrates. Other people have attributed it to um, I don't even know. I think Buddhism. Even I have said that here before, but I think the original quote comes from Rumi. Obviously, this is a translation, so I don't really know, I guess is what I'm saying. And David's not here to look it up for us. Uh, but I will share my favorite quote with you that I think will be so helpful this week, no matter what we're doing. Before you speak, let your words pass through three gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And a lot of you have heard me talk about this before, but it is one of my favorite ways to live. I'm not saying I am 100% in alignment with that all the time, but I really love the idea of pausing, letting my words pass through these beautiful spiritual gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And that really helps with my discernment. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but I'm hopeful that with Venus here in the chart, that our words do pass through those gates. And I think, the other phrase that comes to mind is it helpful to further something that is of great value or greater value. So there's a lot to consider. Um, as we move through this week, we are at the beginning of Sagittarius season. I love that from a solar perspective. And so the Sagittarius energy brings a lightness. And Mercury's not done with its Scorpio journey. So, how do we want to proceed? Well, we continue deepening, we continue listening, we continue honoring the ancestors as best we can. I do think that it's interesting, this card about the rainbow DNA. There's a lot in here, I'm sure. And one of the things that has continued to surface for me over the last month, and with Scorpio energy still with the Mercury retrograde and with Venus, is a reminder. Am I doing my spiritual practices to honor those who came before? And, this card reminds me so much that everywhere, all of us, all who came before, not just my biological ancestors. So that's something to consider for this week as well. And I'll just do a little bit, right? But there's a lot to share. So I'm excited. All right. So one of the things I was reading earlier today by one of the astrologers that I look to a lot. Her name is Jessica Davidson. She put out an article this morning about Saturn and Neptune and Pisces. She has a more traditional view and than I do probably. And I love reading all different types of astrologers, mostly because it is important for me to continue to learn myself. So I have some uh, very powerful articles that I have read recently. And some of the astrology that I'm learning now is post-colonialism astrology, which is very interesting because there is so much that gets filtered through all the changes in our culture. So I'm grateful for all of those astrologers out there writing. Thank you so much because it really helps all of us. So back to Jessica. One of the things that she was talking about is the Neptune and Saturn in Pisces, which we've talked about before, and I felt very affirmed to remind us all of this week and this month and in December. This is our time. This is our time to remember our spiritual practices. It's our time to really deepen into our visions, our dreams. And I don't just mean our nighttime dreams, but our dreams for what we want that can make this world better, how we want to contribute. The Neptune and Saturn event that I keep referring to in February is where everything moves to 0 point Aries. Not everything, but Neptune and Saturn move to 0 point Aries. If everything was moving to 0 point Aries, I'd be really worried. But just Neptune and Saturn are moving to 0 point Aries. And what that does is it really shifts gears. It's like we're still right now learning being reminded of some of the lessons that we came here to learn. We're integrating spiritual practices. We're being reminded that we're here creating sacred space for our lives, but also the lives of all the people on the planet. And we want to take our wisdom with us because when we get to Aries, it is go time. It is, in fact, action oriented. So, for now, for right now, journaling, deepening in, listening, really listening to the messages that are coming through. And people will ask me the question, well, how do I listen to the messages? Those messages come in so many different ways. It can come from a bird that you see out the window. It can come while you're on a walk and you see the most beautiful flower when everything else is frozen. You can use oracle cards, tarot cards. It can come through a conversation. There's no one right way that messages come through. I think the idea is just to listen and more than talk, which is not what I'm doing right now, but definitely listening, deepening, and honoring, really honoring the soul and the heart journey that we're on. Reminder about Neptune, because I talk a lot about Saturn, and I do have the Saturn class coming up, the first class of the series coming up in 2 weeks. The Neptune, I haven't talked a lot about, but it's a really important reminder for all of us. While Neptune is still in Pisces until next year, this is the last time Neptune will be in Pisces in our lifetime. So, that planet of divine compassion, unconditional love, dreams and visions, intuition. Take it in, remember, deepen. The shadow side of Neptune is confusion. The shadow, one and another shadow side would be illusion or delusion. I think one of the things that I'm seeing and sensing and feeling very, very much right now is a lot of people's confusion. Like, what do I do? Where am I going? How do I do this? What's next? Um, I would say during this time, I don't think we need to try to figure it out. I think the best thing, and this is my opinion, you can use your discernment. The best thing is to allow the Saturn energy to create a strong foundation of what it is that is important to you. Okay? How you want to live your life. What are the values that you hold true for you? And being very discerning and honest with yourself. From there, what dreams do you want to create, or what dreams are you willing to begin to create? It doesn't all have to happen next year. It won't all happen next year. So, what is the beginning? And it is very interesting to consider the 0 point Aries toward the beginning of the year, something that hasn't happened in thousands of years, along with a 10-year or a 1 year. We have a lot of what I would call fresh start energy. So, where in our lives do we want to make some new beginnings? Saturn asks us to really look at the lessons we're learning. That's something I've reserved for this series because it's a lot. Neptune asks us to dream, to be open, to listen, to be guided by love, to be guided by compassion and empathy. So that's our very light look at the week. But this will be ongoing through December and part of January as well. So we have a lot of beautiful energy with us right now. As we move through the week, and I'll remind us of our cards, we have our two Sacred Geometry Anchor cards. I don't know if you can see them very well, but there they are. And then we have an interesting card you might consider in context of Neptune and Saturn. By the way, that's a really good card for Saturn and Neptune. And this card in context of how you're living your life. And then this card just in context of where we're headed, right? So again, they don't necessarily have to come in that order, but in case you want, in case you need a little order, in case you need a little Saturn energy, that might work. Okay. All right. I am going to close early today so that we all have some time, if you want to take the time, to do some journaling, to kind of do a little more reflecting. And one of the things that I'm doing right now is remembering what Saturn has been teaching me this year and the last 2 years, before it moves on into Aries, and spending a little bit more time with Neptune and really listening. What are my dreams? This is a little different than goals. We can have goals based on our dreams, but I think it's really important to dream first. And then, of course, this week, let's be mindful of how we speak to ourselves and how we speak to each other, and enjoy the energy of the Scorpio that's still with us, even though we've moved into Sagittarius, so in with the sun. Okay. All right. I'm going to end the recording now. Thank you so much. I hope you all have a good week.